let's learn about the dimensions of mental health. When someone has a mental illness, it means that their brain is not functioning as it is supposed to. We call this a disorder, whereby the brain's chemical and electrical messengers are not working as they should. This causes problems with thinking, feeling and behaving. Before we go any further, let's go through some definitions. When we talk about mental illnesses, the disease refers to the problem in the brain, while the illness is how a person experiences the disease. Mental illnesses must be diagnosed by a trained health professional, and requires evidence-based treatments for them to get better. The risk of someone developing a mental illness in their lifetime is about 1 out of every 5 people. In short, about 20% of the population will develop a mental illness at some point in their lives. Now, let's talk about mental health. According to the World Health Organization, health is defined as a state of complete physical, mental and social well-being and not just the absence of disease or infirmity. This means that mental health is about a person's overall well-being, and not just the absence of mental illness. Our mental health affects all of us and is present throughout all our lives. Mental health distress and problems happen when we are exposed to stress, especially when the stress is beyond our control, continues for a long time, causes extreme emotions and symptoms, and interferes with our social, vocational or physical aspects of our daily life. This means that when we are faced with the stresses of daily life, our brain is expected to react in a usual manner through its internal mechanisms of coping. For example, if we lose something, we may be flustered for a while but we will manage. We won't need medical treatment for this. On the other hand, mental health problems are more of an issue. For example, when we lose a loved one, the emotional and physical response we experience is part of our brain's response to a severe or persistent life problem. We may require additional help such as through a counselor or a therapist, but we don't really need medical treatment for it. Finally, there is mental sickness. This is what society views of mental illness and often about mental health. This often results in mental health stigma and discrimination, because many people hold on to myths and misconceptions about mental illness, such as believing people who are mentally ill are bad, or do bad things. So, these are the dimensions of mental health. It's important to have a good understanding of it so that we can improve our mental health and learn to cope with the stress of life. We must also recognize mental illness and understand how these illnesses can be treated. Just like physical illnesses, early treatment leads to recovery and independence. Lastly, we must also not forget to debunk the myths and misconceptions of mental sickness, so that we will not perpetuate the stigma of mental illness.